Hi, this is Aaron with cointutorials.com, and today we're going to be talking about candlesticks. Candlesticks are probably the most basic representation of information on a chart that you should be aware of. And if you are going to start trading coin, it's really important to have a basic understanding of what this graphical representation means of what the price is doing, because it gives you a snapshot of the value of the price over time. So we're on poloniex right now, and you can see down here we've got some date ranges, some time periods, and over here we have the price of the coin in BTC, which is Bitcoin. Now if we stripped out these lines right here and these other lines down here, these ones actually represent volume, and you were just left with these red rectangles and these black lines, and you just were to observe those by themselves, that would be referred to as naked price action. And it is the most fundamental thing to understand if you want to start trading altcoins. So let's get into it. By the end of this, you are going to understand a few terms and be able to read a basic chart. So you should understand what naked price action is. I already kind of went over that. We're going to talk about wick tails and shadows. We're going to talk about a doji candle. And we're also going to talk about what these colors mean, and it should give you a basic understanding of how to read these guys. So, basically, if we look at this green line right here, and we observe just the rectangle part, this actually doesn't seem to have a wick on it at all. It's just the rectangle. This would be called the candle. The line, which is black here, which can go above or below that rectangle, is called the wick, the tail, or the shadow. All those terms are synonymous. I prefer wick just because if we call this the candle, it makes a lot of sense to call this thing the wick. It's easy to remember. So let's forget about the wicks for a second, and let's just think about the rectangle part. When you look at the bottom of the rectangle, if it is green, that represents that at the beginning of this period of time, right now we have our increment set to 30 minutes, the price started at the bottom of this candle and it ended at the top. Now, if it's red, it means that the price started at the top of the candlestick and it ended at the bottom. So that's really the only tricky thing about this, is there's a bit of an inversion there, but it makes a lot of sense that when you think about something that is bullish, something that is going up, it would be positive, it would be green. And when you think about something bearish, going down, it would be red. So this area here, that's just the rectangle part, we refer to that as the real body. Now, when we look at the wicks, and I'm going to try to maybe zoom in a little bit so we can see that a little better. The wicks represent variance within the open and the close of that time period. So follow my mouse if you will. If you imagine that the price started at 0.000178 and it ended that unit of time, which was 30 minutes, at 1917, during that period of time, the price could go above or below the opening and closing price. And so all this wick represents is variance within that time period. So let's go through that one more time. If we started here at 0.001879, and then 5 minutes later, it dropped down to 1847, and then 5 minutes after that, it jumped up to 1936, and then by the end of the unit of time, it came down to 1917. That would be an example of how a candlestick like this could be created. So doji candles are a very specific kind of candle, and I'm going to try to find an example of one by zooming out just a little bit. Okay, so here's a good example right here. If we look at this right here, you can see that there's just a tiny green line. And so there's really no body to the candle. And so that means that the price opened at pretty much the same price that it closed, but within that time period, it had variance. So anytime you see this kind of pattern, that is referred to as a doji candle. So there are also a lot of other terms that represent patterns within these candlesticks, and sort of like the way they're shaped or the way they look. Sometimes you have long wicks, sometimes you have short wicks, sometimes you have more wick on the bottom versus the top. And we're not going to get into all of those details now, as this is just kind of like an introduction, but you should be in a good position now to go to poloniex.com or any other exchange and take a look at these charts and kind of see if you can follow what the price was doing with the information you learned in this tutorial. Good luck, good trading, and thanks a lot from cointutorials.com.